The following video may be difficult to watch due to some of the content of the stories that I am about to share with you. If this video is being watched by any children, this is my parental guidance warning. I do try to be a little sensitive with the description of some of the stuff that I went through. So this is my due diligence. The following video is dedicated to the memories of the teenagers who have taken their own lives due to being bullied. This video is also dedicated to my mother. Without her, I would not be sitting here today telling my story. Rest in peace, Mom. I love you. And thank you for everything that you did to get me here today. Hello, my name is Valerie, and this is my story of survival through years and years and years of torment and bullying by my fellow classmates from the time I was in first grade all the way to the day that I graduated high school. The purpose of this video is to share my story and hopefully maybe inspire those that went through this to tell their story, or those that are currently going through this. I want to show all those that tormented me that I am stronger, and you didn't break me. You tried every single day to break me and break my spirit, but you didn't. I've long considered making this video, and I had been trying to find the courage to share this story. It's going to be quite painful to share my story. And a lot of people know me, and I've touched on some of the highlights that you could call it, but here's my time to share this with all of you, some of which only a handful of people know the degree of how bad it really was for me. What was I bullied for? That is a very long list of things, many of which were completely out of my control. For starters, I was born with a skin condition called ichthyosis. The translation of that means skin like a fish. My skin is rough. It can be scaly looking. Depending on the weather, it flakes really badly. It runs in my family. There are those that have it more. There are those that have it less. I'm somewhere in between. So all throughout school, maybe take that back, maybe up till high school, maybe the kids decided to get a little bit more mature. But basically elementary school, kids would create this little spray with their finger, and if I touched them, they would use their magic spray and spray themselves and their skin with the affected area because Valerie touched them and she's got cooties, and you're gonna get this disease. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not like grayscale. It doesn't work like it does in Game of Thrones, where you touch the affected area and then all of a sudden you're gonna get grayscale and you're gonna turn into this person covered with this. I had a skin condition. It was out of my control. But basically, that's one of the myriad of things that these kids that I went to school with, my peers, teased me about. Another one of the things that the kids teased me about were my lips. Because of my skin condition, I have perpetually chapped lips. No amount of chapstick could ever fix that. I should buy stock in some sort of company. But I also have very full lips, which people actually pay thousands of dollars for lip injections, and I come by it naturally. They also would, because of my lips being so large, they would call me the N-word, that N-word lips, horse lips. I never saw it for myself, but there was a time in high school as a birthday prank, whether it happened or it was talked about. Someone was talking about breaking into my locker and filling my locker full of chapstick. Such a thoughtful idea, really. Thank you to those that wanted to do that for me, because you would have hooked me up for life. So thank you. Another item to add to the very long laundry list of things I was bullied for throughout my school years was the fact that I smelled of cigarette smoke. My parents were chain smokers, you could say. Growing up in an environment like that, you don't realize what you smell like. It's what you know. It's what you've become acclimated to. But this was completely out of my control. I couldn't do anything about that. And yet I was reminded every single day about how badly I smelled. I would say that I made myself an easy target. I had a really bad temper, and I had no control of my temper. So therefore, the kids always wanted to see how far they could push me before I would burst. And my temper led me to do some things, not my finest moments in my life. I would stand up on the desks and yell and scream at the teachers. This one time, this girl was teasing me in the locker room after PE, and I was brushing my hair, and she started teasing me, and she went to go about her business, and I picked up my vent brush and I started wailing on her so badly because I just was so angry that she would tease me so badly. I'm not proud of how I handled some of these situations, but you know, this is an example of the effect that these kids bullying me would push me to the brink where I would retaliate with physical violence. One school basically banned me from stepping foot on their campus until I was 18 years old. And that was after they kicked me out because I had a file a foot high of violence, which was all in retaliation. of the bullying that was done to me. When I was in 3rd grade, I was walking, I think it was back to the classroom after recess. And these were the days when silly string was popular. And there was this boy in his cohorts packing silly string, and they came up from behind me and at close range shot about 4 cans of silly string into my hair. And I can't remember how long it took to get it out of my hair, but that was not fun at all. When I was about 10 years old, I had spent the weekend 2 days straight, 8 hours each day in overcast weather, no sunscreen. I ended up with 2nd-degree sunburn on my lips, a case so bad that the doctor told my mother he had never seen a case that bad. I had 20 sores on my bottom lip. There's a lot of square footage there, as you can see. I had about 15 sores on my top lip. And I couldn't make it at school because the kids would just torment me so badly. My lips were in a constant state of bleeding. It was very painful. I couldn't talk. I couldn't eat. I couldn't yawn without being in pain or them bleeding. So my mom pulled me out of school because the kids were so terrible to me. That wasn't any fun. When I was in 3rd grade, I had befriended a girl who was the same age as me, and she had an older sister, and she talked me into meeting with her in the bathroom during class. Okay, so I did. Well, her older sister, might have been a 5th or 6th grader, I believe, was in the bathroom too when I went to go meet with her. And my memories of this incident are foggy. There's a reason why. It's not something that I want to remember. It's one of those incidents where I blocked it out for a very long time. And then something triggered it, and all these horrible memories of this time came back to me. Basically, the older sister shoved me into a bathroom stall and then had me lay down on the ground and started touching me over my clothes, then would straddle me and would dry hump me, and then when she was done, her sister would do the same to me. And basically they threatened me to not go to anybody because they would do far worse to me. And this went on for a while. At some point, I think there was a part of like Stockholm syndrome that went along with it, where towards the end of these incidences, I just kind of went more along with it, didn't put up a fight, you know. One day they followed me home from school, and I grabbed the garden hose and shot them with it and yelled and screamed at them, and, you know, basically called them out, called their bluff, said, okay, go ahead, go tell everybody what's been going on. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized what they had done to me. I was sexually abused by my peers, and this happened at school, at something that should have never, ever happened, but it did. And I just had to learn to cope with this as part of my past, and it being another reason why I didn't let something like this break me and break my spirit, and be strong and rise above it. One afternoon when I was walking home from school, I don't remember if anybody was with me. I was minding my own business. I think I was maybe 4th grade. I could have been older. I don't remember. I was walking up the street, and I was almost to the end of the street, heading north to get to the end of the block to cross the street, then to head west. Out of nowhere, this young kid, a little bit younger than me, comes up and swings his backpack and full of books and knocks me to the ground. And then I fall to the ground, and him and his friends proceed to kick me. Luckily, this didn't happen for too much longer. There happened to have been a woman who was cleaning her living room window, and she had a bird's eye view of all of this, and she came running out of her house and screamed and yelled at those boys to get away. And she came across the street and picked me up and made sure I was okay. And she took me into her house and asked me, you know, what's one of my parents' phone numbers to call. So she ended up calling my mom and telling my mom what had happened. And the lady was so kind, and she kept me at her house until my mom could come home from work to pick me up. The bullying throughout elementary school was so bad that my mother pulled me out of my home-based school which I went to from 1st to 4th grade. 5th to part of 7th, I went to another elementary school. That is one I was kicked out of because my temper was so bad and I resorted to a lot of violence. So then I was put on an inter-district transfer to be able to go to that school. So they tried their hand at sending me to another school, which I lasted all of 8 weeks at this school, part of 7th grade. There was this really cute boy that I had a crush on at that school, and I made friends with a suspicious girl who went back to her friends, and they plotted against me and told that boy that I liked him. And next thing I know, he started paying attention to me. And next thing I know, he comes and asks me to be his girlfriend. And I was like, wow, maybe my luck is changing. So this relationship went on for, I don't know, a week or so. I don't remember. And then one day after PE class, I went in the locker room and I forgot something. And that suspicious girl was standing out there outside the locker room and was talking all this crap about me and to her friends, and they were laughing about me, thinking this kid, like, that I could ever have a chance with him. And that's when I found out that it was all a lie and they were doing it just to hurt me. So that was awesome. While I was also going to that school, there was this one girl that I guess you could say I bullied her. So one day after school, she had heard that I was talking crap about her parents, and she confronted me out in front of the school, and we got into a fight. It's like the one fight that I won. I kicked her in the back of the knees, made her fall to the ground, and a couple days later, she got her girls to come defend her, and they cornered me in the media center at the school and just pummeled me. But because I was on an inter-district transfer, the transfer was revoked, and I then had to go back to my home-based school. I remember that day. I remember going home and crying and crying and crying, begging and pleading with my mother, please, 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 don't send me back to that school. Just please, don't. I don't know if I can survive. Please don't send me back to that school. Please don't send me back to that school. My mother's hands were tied. So I had to finish out 7th grade and 8th grade at that home-based school, where the majority of my bullying occurred. During practice of 8th grade graduation, I was in the second to the last row for the graduation. And while practicing, the last row had filed in, and as I was approaching my seat, one of the boys in my 8th grade class decided to shove the metal chair very hard into the shin of my leg, just because. So then I had to walk my graduation, my 8th grade graduation, with this hellacious bruise on my leg, just because. It wasn't just the students that bullied me. I also was bullied by one teacher in particular, who I had, unfortunately, 2 years in a row for English. 9th grade year, I was brushing my hair in class, and I dropped my brush. The teacher just happened to be going down my aisle, and she ever so kindly picked up my brush to hand it back to me. And as she was coming up from the ground to hand me my brush, she whispered in my ear, "You may think you're cute, but you're not." And teenage me was thinking, "Oh, hell no." And I had an outburst, and I said, "F you, you effing bitch." And next thing I know, I'm sent to the vice principal's office and received an in-school suspension. Yet, she's the one that said that horrible thing to me. Fast forward to 10th grade year. Same teacher. Oh, joy. One of the students in the class decided that they no longer wanted me in the class. And so they decided as a class that they wanted to vote me out of the class. That said teacher was the one who was the tallywhacker, so to speak, the one that was counting the votes to vote me out of the classroom. Yeah. I wonder if she ever won Teacher of the Year award at any point in her career. Going into 10th grade over that summer, I had spinal surgery to fuse my back. I was born with a back defect that caused my discs to move in and out of place. So I had to have corrective surgery. During that time, that first semester of 10th grade, I was homeschooled, but I was allowed to go to campus first period and last period. I missed my so-called friends, so I would go down during lunch to hang out with them. On one particular day, I chose to wear this flowered skirt that my mom had bought me, and one of my friends took issue with me wearing this skirt because, God forbid, I wear the same skirt that she wore 2 weeks prior. Well, of course, when there's such a ruckus and a potential fight, next thing you know, there's 200 kids surrounding us, screaming, "Fight, fight, fight, fight." Well, this particular young lady didn't want to throw the first punch, probably for 2 reasons. She didn't want to get in trouble. The second reason, I was wearing a back brace, and she probably didn't want to hurt me because my back was still healing. But everybody was chanting and chanting and chanting until one lovely gentleman decided to jump out in the crowd and say, "Well, if you're not going to hit her, I will." And he slugged me so hard in the shoulder. Well, needless to say, that fine young gentleman ended up getting suspended. Karma sucks. I had a friend who basically I was best friends with from the age of 12. And I don't exactly remember what birthday it was. I was invited to her party. Little did I know that I wasn't invited to the slumber party that was happening later that night. All the girls there kept it secret. And the next day, I went to go get the paper in the driveway, and I found cans of dog food and hot dogs scattered all over our driveway. And I was just thinking, what? Why are these things here? I don't know how, but there was a rumor going around that I shoved hot dogs up my vagina, and so that my cat could eat them out of my vagina. And so that's why those hot dogs were in my driveway. And I have to suspect that the dog food was something because they thought I was a dog and I was hungry. Yeah. One of the more silly altercations, fights you could say, that I got into might have been in 10th grade. There was this girl I knew. We never really were friends, but we kind of had like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So it turns out that her dad was dating my father's goddaughter, who I've known pretty much all of my life. Well, she had an older sister that was also going to school with us, and her older sister had a hate fire for the father's new girlfriend and didn't like that I was singing the praises of my father's goddaughter, who was dating their father. So they started yelling and screaming at me in the quad of the school for basically sharing my opinion of this woman. And it was all because of their own issues with their parents' divorce, and I was a really easy way for them to project all of their anger about their situation. How was I supposed to know? I had no idea. And they just yelling and screaming, and kids all around us screaming at us, "Fight, fight, fight, fight." But it's like, really? Just because I know your dad's girlfriend? She's kind of like family to me, and you think she's a bitch because you feel like she's breaking up your family and your parents' marriage? All right. A year or two out of high school is when online dating started becoming a thing. So I decided to try my luck at it. Made a dating profile and getting responses here and there. And one time, I got a response from some guy who decided to tell me that we went to high school together. Keep in mind, his identity throughout this entire incident remained anonymous. This coward decided to cyberbully me, basically, and torment me. And so it all started out really innocent and sweet. And, you know, I'm a young woman. I'm very cautious because this is an online dating thing. So, you know, kept the dialogue going. With every email, he got more and more, becoming more and more of a sexual deviant, talking about anal sex. But he would always talk about, yeah, me and my friends, we always thought you were so hot, blah, 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 blah. And I was becoming rather disturbed at the graphic detail for which he was talking about what he wanted to do to me violently with anal sex. So one day I called him out on it via email and wrote him an email and was just like, you know, I don't know what your deal is. That's great. You knew me. You thought I was hot, but, you know, I really don't appreciate what you're doing. So, you know, I'm going to have to bid you adieu and have a nice life. Please don't contact me again. So the next email I get from this guy, he just went completely psychotic. And up until that point, you know, maybe a year or two out of high school, I had put all of this behind me. And he just went off in the email, this tirade, capital lock, you know, caps lock, and just went off about how he knew me in high school and how fat and ugly I was, and how him and his friends made it a point every single day to talk about me and how disgusting I was and to make fun of me. I was sitting there reading this email. My mouth just hit the floor, you know, like, what, whoa, like, I'm in the Twilight Zone. And just all of a sudden, like a Mack truck, all of those painful memories of everything I endured came flooding back. I started shaking. I started crying. I started hyperventilating because I had tried so hard to put it all behind me. And then this one email from this malicious coward was all it took to unravel it all. My coworker saw me and saw how upset I was and came over, turned off my computer, took me away from my desk, and was just there to console me so that I could cry it out. It's not often, if at all, that incidences like this trigger me, because I've worked really, really, really hard to rise above all this. Fast forward a couple years later, 6 years out of high school at this point, I was at Walmart with my parents shopping, minding my own business. I was walking down one of the aisles and I looked down the aisle and there were these two boys that I recognized from high school. Mind you, we're 24 years old. They look over at me and started barking like dogs at me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I stood there paralyzed for a few seconds. I turned around and I found my mom. And as soon as I found her, I crumbled. I started crying. I started hyperventilating. I started shaking. And she asked me what was wrong. And I told her. My dad, he says, "Oh, walk it off, walk it off, walk it off." My father was a police officer. He worked crazy hours. He never realized all that I went through. And my mom was like, "No, leave her alone. You don't understand. Just give her some time. You can't even begin to understand. You'll never understand." And I hope if he sees this, that he'll finally get it. He'll finally understand what I went through. Sadly, in the history of the high school I went through, they experienced a high school shooting. And I remember that day very well. I had an emotional breakdown that day. Here's my alma mater. Here's my hometown. I live so close to the high school. I live so close to home. Then I heard about the kid that did this horrific deed. And I heard that he was bullied. My heart broke in half. My heart broke in half because he chose to take the lives of others my heart also broke in half because I felt this kid's pain. I went down to the school that day and left some flowers, and I said some prayers for the students that were killed, for the students of the school that had to go through that tragedy, for the staff, and I also left a thank you card. And that thank you card was to the vice principal, to my guidance counselor, and to one of my teachers. And in that card, I told them, thank you for being there for me. Thank you for listening to me, because I would have turned a gun on myself before I would have ever been the coward that this boy was, and to take those two innocent lives like he did. At my 15-year reunion, we had a mixer, and I saw this one girl who was one of my tormentors. She wasn't the worst of them. She was just a mean girl. She went out of her way to come up to me and give me the most heartfelt apology. I was so blown away by her thoughtfulness. And she was just so apologetic. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? It's water under the bridge. We were kids. Kids are mean. Kids are cruel. We're adults now. I don't harbor any ill will towards you. And she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, you're amazing. And I looked at her and I'm like, what? And she's like, you're amazing. I was so mean to you, and the fact that you can stand there and look at me and say that back to me, you're amazing. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for my mother. My mother was my rock. She fought every single day for me to live. She sacrificed so much for me to live. It wasn't until she was on her deathbed that I finally realized all that she did for me. I held her hand. I said, You saved my life, Mom. She said back to me, I know. My mom would be at work, and she would drop everything and go down to the school, talk to the vice principal, talk to my guidance counselor. The secretaries of the guidance counseling office couldn't stand my mom because she would just waltz in there, not have an appointment, and my guidance counselor would take one look at her and go, "Hi, Mrs. Ellis. How are you today? Come right into my office." She was amazing. She's gone now. But I'm thankful every single day for what she did for me. She was my strength when I had none to get out of bed. I don't know where I would be right now if it wasn't for her. Probably 6 feet under. No. Definitely 6 feet under. To my tormentors, you know who you are, and you have to live with what you did to me. I forgive you. I forgive you because you have molded and shaped me into the strong, sassy, sarcastic, beautiful, passionate woman that I am today. It is my hope that if you are parents, that you raise your children with unconditional love and unconditional acceptance. I hope you raise them to be someone else's champion when someone else's kid is being bullied. I hope that if you see this video, that maybe you'll think about what you did. And I hope that if you haven't already been doing so with your children, that this might make you have a second thought and start moving your children into a better path of love and kindness and acceptance. To all of those who are currently being bullied, and to all of those who have been bullied, I sit before you with my heart completely, unabashedly raw and open, sharing my story. I hope that this gives you a voice to share your story. And I hope that those that are currently being bullied, I hope I can inspire you to dig down deep and find your strength and fight every single day to live. Because you know what? As soon as you get out of high school, none of it matters. You're just an adult, like every single other person. Find your strength. You will be a better person for it. I have faith in you. I will be your strength. I won't give up on you. I will be your hope. I will be your faith. I will be your strength. But please, please, do not give up. Fight. Live. Do something. Inspire people. Make a difference. I beg you, do not give up. Keep fighting.